Hey guys, it's Fantasy Football Malpractice coming back at you with episode 3. I am Dr. Donkey Teeth, joined as always by the one and only Boof, aka the Karate Kid, aka Ralph Macchio. Nice headband down there, buddy.
Thanks, man. I got some good feedback from our fearless leader over at Rasball, so figured maybe I'll do another bandana. I got a couple colors, assortment. So, we'll just keep it going from that for now.
I think that you should go with something different every week and get like more and more exotic, like maybe a turban next week.
I could do that. I'd have to order one online or something, but who knows? You can get anything these days.
Yeah, we'll see what else we can come up with. Maybe some kilts. I know that those aren't headwear, but we do.
Yeah, I think my wife's family has some Scottish heritage. So I think kilts, I don't know. Is it Scottish? I think it's Scottish. But kilts.
Yeah, I think they're the main ones. I'm sure others wore kilts, but yeah. I think the Scottish are the main ones. Boof. Okay, we're going to try to keep this to 30 minutes. We'll see what we can do. Did you start a timer?
I did.
Nice. Okay. So that was our intro. We was down for 2 minutes here on your beautiful notes. We're going to talk about baseball negotiations and your Jose Fernandez jersey you're wearing there.
Oh, yeah. So today was, or I guess yesterday, they resumed negotiations to try to get the season started. It wasn't as promising as I might have hoped. There were some people who were pretty down. I guess the ownership or whatever's proposal was not very appetizing. But, to quote the great Dr. Ian Malcolm, life finds a way. And so I'm wearing the jersey of my former favorite team. That's another backstory. We may not have time for it today. But, just in hopes that we have baseball this year. I just, life finds a way. Let's get it going.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I guess even if there isn't baseball, knock on wood, I hope that doesn't happen. I love baseball. But even if there isn't, there's still hope for football.
Which is what we specialize in here.
Yeah, they haven't lost part of their season. And also, there has never been, as far as I know, a football holdout or strike like there has been with baseball. I don't know what the deal is with the baseball owners, if they're maybe just because it's been around so much longer, there's more ins and outs. I don't know. Maybe there's just a lot more to baseball with so many more players. I don't know. I guess because there's minors, there's more players, but football teams are huge. So I don't even really know if what it is behind it. I'm sure somebody smarter than us does.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I could tell you all about BABIP, but I couldn't tell you why the players and owners seem to butt heads even more in baseball.
Yeah. Well, football news, though. We had huge news this week. That's sarcasm.
Very fantasy relevant.
Carlos Hyde has signed with the Seattle Seahawks. So actually, I mean, it is kind of interesting. I don't know if you're interested in him, but I am. You're not. Okay. I've been looking at DJ Dallas, and I know that you've been talked a little bit about Travis Homer. Chris Carson dealt with that hip injury at the end of last year. He didn't end up having surgery, so it sounds like it's going well, but who really knows? I mean, they never say like, oh, it's going terrible.
Right.
So we could see some missed time early from him. We could see, I hate to say it, but we could see a lost season from him. It's possible. And then Penny, we know that Penny isn't going to be ready it's unlikely he's going to be ready for the start of the season. So there could be work. I think that there's going to be work one way or another for that number 3 back, and that's going to be Carlos Hyde. So he's that kind of cheap guy that you can get in the last round of your redraft league or land a few shares in best ball leagues and not think twice about it. Don't really expect anything from him, but he can turn into a useful player.
Yeah. He's just one of those, like, I can't stomach it. Just no real upside. Although last year, shockingly, he had like the most boring 1,000-yard season of all time. I did clear 1,000.
I was totally out last year. I wanted no part. And I ended up with him because he ended up being free and
basically free. And I think he still is. And you're right. The Seattle backfield's a total mess. We know they want to run the ball. And yeah, I'm with you I'm a huge injury pessimist, I should say. And maybe one day we can delve into that in a whole podcast. But huge injury pessimist. So if a guy's already injured, I am all about taking other players. That's why I actually have been in on DJ Dallas a little bit. And even Travis Homer, because they've got two guys ahead of him currently injured. So I don't want to bet on that. But yeah, Carlos Hyde's going to come and he's going to do what he did last year, which was, I guess there's some value there, but I'm not too interested.
Yeah, I mean, if he does what he did last year, I'm very interested. But yeah, I don't think he will. But you never know. So I think we've licked that pretty good on the Carlos Hyde front.
As much as we can. It's Carlos Hyde.
So Boof, let's talk about the most fun players that you've ever rostered and why.
Yeah, I figured, in a fairly slow news week, it may be fun to turn back the clock a little bit and just reminisce. I did have L-Jax in one of my longstanding home leagues last year, $1 auction dude at the end of the draft, and that was obviously very, very entertaining to enjoy his season, both in real life and on my fantasy team. But my all-time just like most joy I've ever gotten out of owning a player was Rob Gronkowski in 2015. In probably my favorite long-standing friend league. It's a keeper league, almost a decade of consistent owners. So we're all in it for the long haul. We know each other. Every team has, these unique names. We all, inside jokes galore. It's a really fun league, but I drafted Gronk pretty cheap after his injury 2013. He performed in 2014, but then 2015, I don't know what it was, but he went off. He had another great season. Week 1, he had the 3 touchdowns against Pittsburgh, which was just an awesome way to start the season. We have a little payout for highest score. And I remember I won highest score week 1, which is just a great way to start the season. But then I was so pumped. I made this like little video, which was pretty funny and pretty entertaining, sent it out to the league. Then that became a thing where the high score of the week made a little video, sent it to the rest of the league every single week. And so I'll never forget. I mean, the 2015 Gronk season for me was just such a blast. He's like a total caricature of everything you would want, like to a joke level football player meathead would be. And not only was he in that in interviews, he was like that on the field. I mean, just watching the guy catch a 5-yard slant or something and then just pummel DBs with stiff arms and whatever else. It was just, he was like Frankenstein out there. It was such a blast to own him. And then the last thing I'll say is, I'm generally anxious on game days. I always think my team is going to basically suck, even if they're a good team. I always think about like, how can I lose this week is pretty much all I think about. Gronk is the only player like every week I just knew he was going to smash. Like I never worried about Gronk. I worry about anybody else, Le'Veon Bell, whatever. I'm like, oh, they're going to get down. And then somehow he's like going to get phased out of the offense or something. But Gronk, I just knew it. I mean, I knew Gronk was going to be awesome every week. And that was so fun.
And how can you not be excited about Gronk coming back? Even if he's not the old Gronk, he's still Gronk.
I was looking to see if I could find like a creamsicle Gronk jersey just today, and I don't see any readily available. I'm sure they will be. I might be tempted.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a popular one. So I've got a few here, and actually 2 of them are Patriots as well. Interestingly enough, one of them is just Antonio Brown, and this was my first Dynasty league with a group of friends from home, and I traded for Antonio Brown after his first good season. So I don't think it was his rookie year. I think it was his second season that he finished really strong. And people were starting to get excited about him, but he was not Antonio Brown yet. And I gave up a first rounder and like Chris Johnson and some other receiver that like you think may have value, but they didn't end up having value. And Chris Johnson was just totally worthless too. So basically I traded a first rounder for Antonio Brown and got all of the production from him.
The peak years.
Then I traded him. He led me to a championship, only one. Then I traded him before last year. I think it was the end of the previous season, and I got DJ Moore and Aaron Jones for him. It was just the best. It was the best thing ever.
I mean, you timed it perfect on both ends.
Yeah. It really worked out well. So I think that's my top one, just because of how it all played out, and the bragging rights for having bought and sold him at the perfect time was just great. The two Patriots, though, number one is Randy Moss. I owned Randy Moss when he scored those 23 touchdowns back in 2007. He was it was like you said with Gronk, like you won. You knew that he was going to do it every week.
I don't that was 07?
07, and I had Brady on the same team, so it was over.
He had 50 plus that year, right?
Yeah, I think Brady did.
That was his 50 year, and then Moss. Dude, I was playing fantasy, not nearly at the level I am now, but I don't even think when that was happening I realized how insane 23 touchdowns. Like, that's just. I look back at that, I'm just like, I can't believe that happened.
It was incredible.
Wow. Yeah, talk about a lock and load. Like, how could you lose? How could you possibly lose?
Any idea who my next Patriot would be? It's not Brady.
No, let's see. I mean, it could be James White's 2018 was pretty exciting and satisfying, I think, because he was a value. But Wes Welker?
No, it was another running back a couple of years before James White. LeGarrette Blount.
Blount.
Scored 18 touchdowns in 2016. And it was just so much fun because he was pretty much free. Yeah. And nobody thought that he would continue to do it. It was just every week he was scoring touchdowns.
Yep.
You just fell into RB1 numbers for totally free. So
do you remember what I know he was drafted by Tampa Bay. He had an okay rookie year, and then I think just disappeared for a couple of years, and then resurfaced in New England. Is that what happened? Do you remember?
I think he went to Pittsburgh first, and he almost got Le'Veon Bell into big trouble. They were smoking weed together. Something happened there, and I think he got cut just because he was a bad influence. I think that's how it went down.
Yeah, I don't think I remember him in a Pittsburgh jersey, so maybe it was like an off-season thing, and then they let him go. Classic Patriots would pick a guy up like that too.
Yeah, it was something. I think he played some games for the Steelers. I could be wrong. I can pull it up right now, but actually, he's such an interesting guy because the first I remember of him was I believe it was a bowl game. He went to Oregon, and at least I think he went to Oregon. I think.
Yes, he did.
And it was the end of the bowl game. Again, don't quote me on all this, but I'm pretty sure it was a bowl game. And they were going to shake hands, and they got into a tussle. I think Oregon lost on a controversial play, and he just punches the guy in the helmet.
Absolutely, yep. And you are dead right. Just want to give you props. He did play for Pittsburgh. Looks like maybe it was a half a year. Did not start, but had 65 carries. So
and I think that was at the back end of a year season, and then it was in that off season or coming into into camp or something. Him and Le'Veon Bell got. Whatever happened, I think they got pulled over.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, interesting.
Great pull there.
LeGarrette Blount.
Yeah, great pull there. Blount on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I didn't even register.
Boof, what are we talking about next?
Well, next could be a little while. I think we're pretty good on time, right in the middle here. But in our Dynasty Dive segment, if you will. I wanted to just pick your brain. There's been something on my mind for the last couple of weeks. Basically, how do you navigate the running back window in Dynasty? Because in redraft, you're just picking for 1 year. I'm not even that worried about age. I'm worried about situation in a redraft. But for Dynasty, I always struggle with wanting to not be the guy holding the bag when, the guy falls off the cliff. It's kind of like that hot potato. So I'll preface it by saying a gentleman on Twitter had a nice little graph. He went back till 2000 to 2019 and looked at running backs and their age for all top 12 finishers in each year. And it was Luke Neuendorf, just to give him a shout out. But he charted basically the age of each guy in the top 12 from for 19 years. I think there's 240 running backs in the sample or whatever. And clear peak was age 24. Clear peak, like there were like 38 age 24 seasons, and then it fell off all the way up to like age 27, so somewhere in that window, but the peak is age 24. And then we know after age 27 or 28 it really drops off. So how do you navigate it? What, are you fearful of age in running back in Dynasty? Are you fearful to like dump a guy before he falls off the cliff? Does that not worry you too much? What do you do with that?
Yeah, so I know that your first note is that you're anxious about the concept and some anxiety about making the wrong decision. And for me, this goes back to our previous discussion about Pareto's principle. And we're going to make wrong decisions. And so for me, it's just a numbers game of just keep churning and keep making moves. First of all, I enjoy trading. So I'm going to keep trading just because I enjoy it. And I know that I'm not going to win them all. I'm not looking to win every trade. I'm looking to find value, what I think is value where I can. It's not always going to be value. Going to be wrong plenty of the time. But just looking to try to hit that 55-60% right decision number, which we're going to, because we put so much time into researching this stuff, just on sheer awareness alone of these players and where they're at in their careers and what's going on with their teams and all that. We're probably going to outperform the rest of the league. That's just, you kind of got to trust in yourself. So for me, it's just keep going, just keep trading. I try to accumulate as many running backs as possible, because every year the attrition is going to happen, and there's going to be guys that come up. And if you unfortunately fall out of contention in your league, those guys are gold. You can trade them for second round draft picks, which, the more of those that you get, there's going to be good players that come up in the second round that you want, and you can bundle those and trade them up into the first. So it's just kind of accumulating value wherever I can, whatever position it's at. And running back, we've talked about it before. It's the position that depreciates quickest. So it's a double-edged sword, because when you're in contention and you're going for it, you got to have them. You need to have at least one stud, probably two in any seasoned dynasty league, just because the cream rises to the top and people are rebuilding and those assets just shift to this segment of the league, and suddenly there's three top running backs on one team. You're not going to win just by having one, unless you get really lucky. And you can get lucky just by accumulating a bunch of running backs and having them come into good situations based on injury late in the season and stuff like that. So for me, it's not something to overthink. It's just trust your analysis, trust your system. If you're trading a real stud, make sure that you're getting another stud back and then pieces on top, and you're just accumulating value wherever you can, and kind of keying in on those teams that these players mean the most for. If you're trading a young guy, make sure you're getting a vet and then another piece too. And there's also no need to force a deal if it doesn't feel right to you. There's always going to be another trade. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. Yeah, I do like to try to trade guys before the bottom falls out. But if the offer's not there, whatever, I'll take them for their whole career, and I'm not just going to give a guy away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just you want to ride it out, which kind of leads me to my. As I think we can establish, if it hasn't been established in episodes 1 and 2, I'm a jittery, anxious fantasy player. I'm always thinking about how things can go wrong. I think that makes me good, but I also think it's probably a little bit overkill. But yeah, riding guys out, and so I've kind of developed this thought in Dynasty. I really. And this isn't an ideal situation, I suppose, but I really want to draft running backs I like and watch them ascend. And so I know I already have them when they're getting good, or right before, like, the next year is going to be the big year. And so I don't have to pay for them in an acquisition. I think that's really hard. And I think that's where I have my most I guess I get kind of paralyzed because I don't want to give up what it will take to acquire a Saquon Barkley, even for a championship run, because you just like, they're impossible to acquire. I mean, so if you don't already have a guy like that, once they've shown they're really good, it's really hard to get them on your team. And so I've just developed this idea of like, I'm just going to kind of probably be okay with middling running backs. Unless I draft one as a rookie pick and they kind of blossom into the stud that we all hope that all of our rookie picks are, because it just seems like so if your window is age 24 for peak, but even age 24, 25, let's say, maybe age 23 season, that's maybe the second year in the NFL, they really show some promise, and then boom, age 24, 25 is when they're going to blow up, and you try to acquire them, you've given up so many assets, you get your 1 year, your 2 years of that league winning type production. And if you don't, I don't know, if everything else doesn't fall into place, you've just leveraged so much for one player. And of course, I'm talking in the high end. I'm talking about your Saquons, your CMCs, Alvin Kamara's. But yeah, I guess I've just, my biggest concern is how do you get running backs? How do you acquire the studs? And I think the best thing is you just got to draft them, and that's easier said than done. But I'm not a big fan of, I think, of giving up so much resources to get a guy who may have 1 or 2 years of a window for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. And I think those are the guys that you're not necessarily going to be targeting when you're in that contention window. Because like you said, first of all, the guy that has them is probably contending too, because they're so good and so young. And if they aren't, there's no reason to trade them unless they're getting a king's ransom, because if next year's their contention window, or even 2 years, that's the player that they're going to be looking to buy then. So unless they feel like they're getting a ridiculous deal, there's no need to do that. So I think from my perspective, the idea is to target somebody maybe last year, like a Derrick Henry, that's not, they're having a great season. They're an RB1, but they don't have huge dynasty value. Kenyon Drake.
Yeah, Drake was actually one for me that I actually targeted in multiple leagues when he got traded. And I just was like, I think if he produces for Arizona, I knew the contract situation, but I was like, I think he's going to stay there. And lo and behold, here we go. I think he's going to be an RB1 this year. And I actually, that was the perfect situation. I think right there, I got him for like a second round rookie pick. Like, I think in the second week he was in Arizona or something like that. Adam basically had him as a glorified throw-in another trade in a keeper league. So that's a perfect example. If you can guess, I guess, the situation.
Yeah, and it's it's not a perfect science. I mean, yeah. You can guess wrong and end up with nothing, but you just hope that you're not jeopardizing your future. You're not mortgaging the future for guys like this. Leonard Fournette, this man has worn off a little bit. He's now we don't know what his future is going to be like. He's a guy that you can acquire at somewhat of a discount.
Yeah, if you were looking down the line and you're like, I think 2020 is a legitimate contention year, I think that's a good example. Leonard Fournette, yeah, I mean, because you're right. I think the dynasty community is probably a little down, but he can still provide value this year, I think, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's picking and choosing. You're right. You're probably not going to get one of those studs unless you've played really well rebuilding your team and you just have a ridiculous amount of depth and assets, which can happen. And then you can overpay and get a Saquon or a Christian McCaffrey.
Because you would. That's the thing is you have, like, going into a deal like that, you have to know, I have to overpay. I have to overwhelm the owner of CMC or Saquon. It's got to be basically out of whack in value for him to even want to do it, him or whoever is has them, because otherwise why are they going to want to sell them at all? Like you said, they're looking towards next year or whatever as well. So
yeah, really we could probably do a 10-show series on trading, because there's just so many ins and outs to it. And I put so much thought into trading. Just looking back at my progression as a fantasy player in both baseball and football, and how I used to approach trading and trying to win every trade and feeling this, these emotional attachments and stuff. It's really wild looking at yourself in the mirror and, kind of reflecting on it. It's kind of a meta deal for me in trading. And I've gotten to the point where it's just like, I'm just trading because I enjoy it. And if it seems fair and it makes sense for my team, then I'm doing it, and I don't think twice about it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I'll make another trade. So,
oh yeah. And I'm actually a big proponent of basically losing trades on paper to get a guy that you want, or to get the package that you may want, whether it's a pick, picks or whatever. I don't care about losing a trade kind of based on, if you put it into some trade calculator or something like that. If you're getting what you want and someone you're prospecting on, I think next year is going to be a big year for whatever reason. I have no problem with that. And I think a lot of people are like terrified of being made fun of, I can't believe, the Bill O'Brien of our league or whatever,
That is true. I mean, I'm not a proponent of losing a trade on paper. I want to try to get as much value as I can, but if it has to happen, yeah, it has to happen. Yeah, don't be afraid of that. One other guy that I'm going to mention, because you brought him up when you came on the Rasball Fantasy Football podcast a couple days ago, and we discussed my top 250 dynasty rankings. You brought up Mark Ingram and how he was a guy that you just wouldn't buy. And I think he's a perfect example. If last year Mark Ingram happened to be on a team that was totally out of contention, I think that you may have been able to get him for a second rounder or something.
I even think maybe a third, honestly.
Yeah, it depends on your league and valuations and all that. But, he was the perfect kind of guy. Like if you had 2 stud running backs, or even 3 stud running backs, and somebody was banged up and you just wanted that extra piece for a little insurance, you felt like this was your season and you just wanted that extra. I mean, take him away from your opponents too. If there's another loaded team that's just that one RB2 short, you can't have too many running backs when the playoffs come around, because you see it every season, these guys getting hurt. And it's just like, I went from this loaded team to now I'm having to start, I don't even know, Damian Williams or something, which actually worked out 2 years ago.
Kerry Robinson. Remember Kerry Robinson, the Saints?
Yeah, the Saints guy. Yeah.
Or Tim Hightower. I was definitely in a championship game once with Tim Hightower.
Hightower won me a dynasty.
Yeah, but you just feel terrible putting him in your starting lineup.
I didn't feel bad at all. Putting him in, yes, but yeah, winning, no.
Oh no, not winning, but actually, like at 12:59 on Sunday, when you have to start Tim Hightower in the championship, you feel pretty exposed.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, I think we're doing real nice with the time. Let's get some quick non-football thoughts. You want to go first?
We're doing media suggestion. Is that this segment?
Whatever mine is not necessarily media this week, but it's anything non-football thought of the week.
Well, I'll keep going with media. I've been watching Legion, old FX show. The Itch mentioned that, the prospect writer for Rasball. He brought it up when we had him on the Patreon podcast with Gray and I, and that's pretty entertaining. It's not an easy watch by any means. Have you seen it?
I have not.
It's kind of trippy. It's kind of an X-Men tangent, I guess you'd call it. Mutants and stuff. But
done with that.
Yeah, if you like the X-Men and you're able to stick with a story that is just kind of all over the place, I recommend Legion. That's on Hulu. And then I've also started another one that Itch recommended was Outer Banks, Netflix show. And that was
I think I saw an advert, like a preview or something. It looked kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm watching it. Like, I'm sticking with it. I don't understand some of the storyline. It's one of those shows where, like, why is this even part of the show? But I like the show in general, I'd say.
Nice.
Lukewarm.
Yeah. I mean, when I have to say, when the best thing you can say is I'm watching it, maybe not the best endorsement,
Continue
but
to watch it.
you keep putting it on, right? Hat tip to you, by the way, and any of our listeners. Dead to Me is fantastic, great recommendation. And then my thought is just I've kind of recently, I know you're a yoga instructor, so I think this is right up your alley, but I've kind of really been into doing a little personal meditation, maybe some quietness lately. In these crazy times in our world, there's just so much going on out there all the time, and none of it is very good. So just take some time to yourself, everybody. Do a coloring book that's actually shockingly calming. Or just take some time to kind of just think about your breathing and just sit and be quiet. It's actually very nice. You don't have to do it for very long. I'm talking 5-10 minutes, but just take some time for yourself. So that's my little non-football thought of the week. Other than that, throw out some trade offers. Now's a perfect time where everyone's kind of in a lull between training camp starting. So you can probably get some values.
Yeah, this is the time of the year that you can sometimes prey on people in your league. Either they're like antsy and just want to do something, or maybe they're not so clued into the draft class.
Yeah, I had an email from a guy the other day in the league who was just like, I just want to trade. I'm like, all right, let's go. We haven't worked something out yet, but he seems motivated. He just wants to do something.
Yeah, but another thing, going back to the trade talk, and we'll wrap it up here, so because we're probably at our 30 minutes. But I'm actually a proponent of trying to make trades balanced, because I feel like there's like some sort of, and this goes into your mindfulness thing, there's some sort of karmic thing going on here where if you're like intentionally trying to screw people in trades, they come back to bite you. That's kind of what they had. Maybe it's not true. Maybe it is. I don't know. That's my experience from it. I used to try to screw people, always wanted to win the deal. And, sometimes you just rip somebody off and it, and everybody else in the league knows it. And then that player gets hurt. And,
No, that's a great point. I think it's probably more of a thing in home leagues where people kind of know each other. I'm not sure if you're in some FFPC with a bunch of people that nobody knows. I'm not sure if that's necessarily going to be as prevalent, but I'll tell you that league I'm talking about with Gronk, where we all know each other for like over 10 years. It is hard to trade with people for me, because people know, AJ is always going to get the best of you. And I'm like, I have to intentionally point out trades where I lost to the league all the time to be like, guys, I am not some like, all-knowing person. Like one time I traded for Ben Tate when he was on the Browns, and I gave up an actual asset, and I think he like didn't do literally nothing. He was like cut within 2 weeks or something like that. So I'm like, I try to make my best trades, but like, you guys don't need to be scared of me, but I've got this reputation.
Yeah, you got to work on your self-image.
Got to.
Ben Tate. All right, Boof. Let's wrap it up here. That's episode 3 of Fantasy Football Malpractice in the books. I am Dr. Donkey Teeth. You can find me on Twitter at DonkeyTeeth87. Boof is he's got some crazy Twitter handle. You can.
I'll do it. AL_FF_RED. It's not that hard. Or just type in Alfred with 2 Fs. I'll come up. I got Tua Tagovailoa as my icon right now, so look for that.
Yeah, let's get that changed. All right, guys, head over to Razzball. Check out all of our articles over there. Oh, the Razz Bowl. The Razz Bowl. We should have led with the Razz Bowl. It is coming, people.
We'll do a whole show on the Razz Bowl.
Yeah. Next week we'll talk more Razz Bowl. But make sure you sign up. We'll put the link in the description here, and you can read up all about it there. All right, Boof. Later, man.
Peace.